Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, everybody. What's going on? Rusty, my friend, Jersey Red. Welcome as always. Holding it down on the comments. I appreciate it, my friend. Laura, what's up? Welcome. Scott, welcome. Who else we got? Steve. Alonzo, welcome. Terry. Great news. Survived another hurricane. Good stuff, my man. Jeff Steen, what's up? Good to see you. Danny, what's up? MA, what's up? Yes, we do have a little Link Ray, a little Rumble warm-up on the tabs tonight. Russ, what's going on? King 50. Ryan, what's going on? Welcome, everybody. Going to do some rhythm guitar stuff on the electric guitar tonight, but of course, many, if not all of these skills can be transferred to the acoustic. If that's all you got, no problem at all. All right, hang out with us on the acoustic as well. Jeff, what's going on? HH back from Ottawa. Excellent. Great work. Great news on the holiday. Congrats. Excellent. Glad to have you back. James, what's going on in Syracuse? Love it. Zane, what's going on? Whoops. Theodore, Rad Flying V. All right. Everybody's out on Friday night. Tim, hello. Terry, what's up? Good to see you all. Thanks so much. If you're just joining us for the first time, expand the description below the video. You'll see a link to the tabs for tonight, each and every Friday at the same time here. We'll go through some musical examples, some tabs. Hopefully, the whole idea is to inspire some experimentation, inspire you to practice, to pick up and give you some things to work on and things to think about, things to take these musical examples and experiment with them. See if you can take them elsewhere, right? Excellent, Scott. Appreciate it. Welcome. I think we got everybody here. HH's fingers are rusty. We'll take care of that. What's up, John? Good to see you here. Glad you made it. All right. Theodore, what's up? Hello. Yes. I'm just running through the list here, so sometimes I know I already said hi. Sometimes I get to say hi twice if you're in the comments twice. Robin, what's up? Good to see you. Nikki the dog, as always. All right. I like it. Excellent. So, get the tabs, expand the description, get the tab for tonight. We're on the electric guitar, going to do a little bit of the acoustic rhythm kind of stuff tonight. Oh, I like that. The Peanuts theme. We'll have to do something for that. MA, did I make a mistake already? Shouldn't that be D over A? Oh, yes, right off the top. Well, technically, maybe. I always say, though, this is actually a great point to start out with. So we're going to talk about exercise 1 just to kind of get going on it. But the very first chord here is a D chord, open D, right? Glenn B, what's up? Glad you made it. Okay, but a lot of times in the open position, you'll find yourself adding in that open A string, okay? And it's totally fine if you do that. It tends to be the chord that's, higher register enough that if you add that A, it thickens it up nicely instead of muddying it up. Okay, so in this case, technically you are correct, MA, that we should probably think of that like technically that's a D over A, which means for a slash chord, it means the chord's up top and then slash and then what's the bass note. And so in this case, technically, you are correct. That's an A, open A string onto the chord, okay? And so that's a D over A, technically speaking. But I tend to not think of it that way because a lot of times we play an open D chord and it just sounds good to add that open A string in there. So, I mean, you can play this either way. Open D string or with the A string added just to make it a little beefier. All right? But good picking that one out right away, MA. I like that. Kesso, good day in Brisbane. Welcome. Laura, technically we do need an amp with a hole in it to get a little bit of a gritty sound, right? So this is one of the earliest guitar rock and roll songs. This was actually the song that inspired Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck and those kind of people to start really playing rock guitar, right? This kind of came out in the late 50s, I think. Just when Beck and Page were discovering the guitar. And I just saw Jeff Beck about a month and a half ago here, open for ZZ Top. And he still plays this song in the set. He'll do a little tribute to Link Wray here. So for those of you who don't know, this first exercise is a song called Rumble. And what I like about this is that, sometimes we get sort of beginners, all right, on here. And this is mostly quarter note kind of stuff until we get to the end of this exercise, okay? And so it's sort of easy to count this and easy to do, sort of all downstroke strums on this. So if you look at the first bar, we've got a rest for the first two beats, and then we're coming in with two quarter notes, two strums on the open D chord. Okay? And then we get to the next bar, and it's an open E chord. Okay? So it's 1, 2. Okay? All right, what else we got going on in here? Terry, what's the big swooping notation mean on the first exercise? Ollie, what's up? Welcome. Jody 1, welcome. Laura, that is awesome. You saw Link Wray. Amazing. So let's talk about the big notation there that's connecting the second bar in the top line to the third bar. And what that means are those are tied notes, which means that you just hold the note into the next bar for whatever the notation is for that note in the next bar. So for example, we've got a whole note on that E chord. So we're going to hold that E chord out for that bar. So that's 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then into the next bar, we're still going to hold it out for that's a half note. Okay, that means that 2 more beats, 2 more quarter notes, we're going to hang on to that. So when we go from 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, next bar, 1, 2, then go back to the D chord on the third beat. 3, 4, and repeat. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay. And once you get this under your fingers, check out this tune on YouTube or wherever you get your music, streaming maybe, but it's a lot of attitude, right? So once you get it under your fingers, you want to dig into this a little bit, really give it something up. All right, because it really affected, Beck and Page back in the day. They'd never heard anything like it, right? But what I love about this example is that this is going to force you to count, okay? And it's straightforward enough that I think, beginner guitar players can start with this. If you can fret some chords, we can start with this. Even if you can't make the chord changes that quickly, slow it down, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay? After the repeat, let's go to the A chord. All right? And we're going to hold out that A chord for the same amount of time as we did with the E chord, right? So a full bar plus 2 more beats into the next bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Back to the D chord. 3, 4, back to the E chord. Okay? Now I'm on the second line, going to the E chord. All right? And then as we progress into this riff, and yes, Scott, you're absolutely right. This was played and it might get loud. For those of you who haven't seen that documentary, it's a great one. It's Jack White, The Edge, and Jimmy Page talking about guitar. It's really cool. Check out that documentary if you haven't seen it. So you see, Tien, what's up? Welcome. Steve Langford, glad you made it. All right. And so going from, okay, from that second time back to the E, you start to see that this is sort of a 12-bar blues kind of form a little bit, right? Because if E is our one chord, right, we're playing just a few chords added to it, like the D chord, one, right? Then we made a move to the 4 chord, which would have been the A, when we moved to the A after repeating that a couple times. Then back to E. All right, then the next one, you see in the third line, we're going to B7. Okay, a little bit of a curveball here because when we get to, we've got those 2 strums on D, 3, 4, top of that third line, we're just hitting the root of the B note, and then on the very next quarter note, the whole chord. Okay, so just a little bit of a curveball. So we go 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And now here's where it gets a little tricky because now we're into some 8th note triplets. Okay, so we're going to kind of come down. Whoops. To end it off. Okay. So pretty iconic riff here with a little bit of a lick at the end of it, but it's mostly rhythm guitar. But what I want you to do, especially those of you, just working on your chord changes, working on counting time, this is a great one to work with, okay? Because instead of filling up all that space, he's letting it ring out, and it's giving you an opportunity to comfortably feel the beat, count with it, okay? It's really easy to count 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, there's nothing more complicated. There's nothing worse for me to try and count when I'm doing something a little more complicated. But when it's something straight ahead like this that hits just downbeats on the quarter notes, you can count along with that. So I think this is a great one to kind of play around with that one. All right, stay in the pocket. You got it, Robin. All right, so flip on a metronome, flip on a drum machine, drum groove, whatever you got. Get a nice tempo going so you can comfortably play this and just really work. It's straightforward enough that you can work on just lining up with it, okay? And just working on your crisp chord changes, but staying in the groove when you're strumming, okay? Just gets a little tricky in that third bar, right? 3, 4, 1, 2. So yeah, Ollie. So that lick right there, you're simply just coming down E minor pentatonic in the open position. Okay, those are all triplets coming down, and then a little bit of a bluesy bend on that G note, 3rd fret of the low string, and then down to the open low string, and then finishing it off. Okay. You with me? Cool stuff, right? Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Terry looked up some Link Ray songs. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not super familiar with him as an artist, but I've been hearing this song like kind of floating around lately, and I just thought it would be a good one to include here. So there you go. Oh yes, and Laura, there is one part of the song. If you check out this song, he just goes up to the upper part of the E major. If you're going to play E major in the 12th position, and you just do the top 3 strings, 13th fret of the G, 12th fret of the high string, and just go off with some fast strums on that. Okay, does that part as well. James, on the bend, is it pulling down towards the floor? Yeah, so on the lower strings, whenever you're going to do a bend, particularly on the low string, you kind of have to pull it towards the floor, because I'm just going to take it, right? So I find a lot of times, even with the D string, I might, depending on what I'm doing, I might do a bend towards the floor, right? Or the A string. especially on the A string, you don't have a lot of room, right? You got some room on the D string, so maybe that's sort of a fielder's choice, whether or not you want to do towards the flow or up. You kind of have a choice there. And then typically on the top 3 strings, you're all bending up towards your chin, right? I love it. Excellent. Okay, exercise 2. Thought we'd go through some strumming. The first one, exercise 2A, is some strums on an ascending progression. So we're going to start on the D chord again, and technically a D over A, but just a regular D chord. If you want to include the open A string, go for it. That's what I have tabbed there. Okay, now here's one of those situations again that I talked about quite a bit when you're trying to decipher the tabs. Whenever you have sort of the last strum before a chord change on an upstroke, it might involve some open strings. Okay, now in this case, the way that this chord progression goes, the first 2 bars of this, you can kind of lock your finger on the D note, 3rd fret of the B string. Okay, so I'm doing a D chord like that. The next chord is E minor 7. So you're getting the 2nd fret of the A and D. You've still got the 3rd fret of the B, and you're adding your pinky on the 3rd fret of the high string, right? Okay, so as I'm switching from D to E minor 7, on that upstroke is when I'm leaving the chord and changing to the next one. Okay, and this is a very common thing, particularly if you start speeding this up. Sounds really natural to do that. Okay, so now, so that's sort of what this exercise sounds like, okay, up to speed a little bit. But check it out. We were just talking about the D over A, and you'll see in the 3rd bar here, we've got a D over A. This makes a little more sense to me that I wanted to be specifically calling out D over A, because in this case, I'm playing a D triad on the D, G, and B string. That's a D major chord with an A in the bass. So normally, if I was going to play this D chord as a fuller chord, not just a triad, but add some notes around it, I would have my pinky on the 5th fret of the A string, and that would be a D note, right? And then I would bar down a little bit to get the F sharp note on the top string, right? But in this case, I'm just doing the triad, okay? So it's sort of, you want to be specific in this case that you're including the open A string, all right? With the D chord, right? Typically, okay, yeah, start with the D as the root. But a lot of times when you're strumming, you include that open A string and it's not a big deal, okay? So that's sort of why I wasn't specific on that. But this one, we kind of have to be specific with this particular chord, this particular inversion of a D chord, or this different shape. Because normally I would play it with the D as the root, okay? But I'm telling you, no, the root is A, okay? So all right. Cool. So let's dissect the rhythm a little bit, because we're playing the rhythm the same all the way through. So starting on the D chord, it's a quarter note, okay? 1 and 2. And then on the and of 2, okay, so on the 2nd beat, I've got a downstroke, but then on the and of 2, I'm doing another downstroke, and then a 16th note later, an upstroke leading in to the 3rd beat of the bar, okay? So that's the repeating part right there, is the down, 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 up, okay? And you'll see as we change those chords, that upstroke is where you're lifting your fingers and putting them into position for the next chord. But in those first 2 bars, you don't have to move this D, you don't have to move your finger off this D note, okay? So you'll see it tabbed in there, some open strings and the 3rd fret of the B string in there. So. And then we get to the A chord. It's a totally different shape right now. We're moving our finger off that. Good little exercise there. Once again, just go slow with this stuff. Take it 1 chord at a time until you make sure you've got the rhythm of it. Okay? So. You don't have to throw in the chord changes right away. Make sure you've got the rhythm for what you need it to be, and then throw in the chord changes. Okay? There's D over F sharp, right? We've got the D chord up top, D power chord, open position, and I'm adding the 2nd fret of the low string as the root note, curling my finger to mute the A string, right? And then we've got the G chord. And again, curling my finger on the A string to make sure I mute that out. Okay? Cool. Yeah, I mean, Terry, this one definitely has a great sound to it. It's, countless songs have used kind of this sort of shape of a progression. Okay? So, yeah, sounds really nice, right? Exercise 2, another common progression. This one sort of reminds me of Mamas and the Papas a little bit. Let's play it and then I'll talk about it. This is exercise 2B. Okay. All right. So what we've got, Laura, I'm going to get to your question in a sec. Okay. Yes. Cool, Russ. Love it. That's what I was thinking with this. So now we're kind of coming down. And what's cool about this one is we're actually keeping the upper part of the chord shape the same. Okay, so I'm starting on B minor. Right? And I've got it down, down, up. Going to do the same thing now, but I'm going to take my index finger off the A string. Now I've got the open A string with the B minor triad up top. So B minor over A, same strum. So that first bar. Okay. Notice I wrap my thumb pretty quickly around the neck just to make sure that I'm muting the low E string. Okay, because I don't want that to ring out. Okay. Now, if you're adept enough at your thumb, you could grab the 3rd fret of the low string, but then you have to mute the A string, which is tricky. So you can do it if you're really good with your thumb. I like to kind of use the finger. Okay. 3rd fret of the low string. Now I'm putting a G note on a B minor triad. When you do that, it turns into a G major 7. Okay? That's all a G major 7 is. It's an alternate way to think of it, is that it's a G root with a B minor chord up top. Okay? That's G major 7. I'm going to play that strum almost twice, just a couple quarter notes at the end. So okay. F sharp sus4, barring down at the 2nd fret, adding the 4th fret of the A, 4th fret of the G. Floaty sound, right? Going to do the strum twice in that bar. Down, down, up, down, down, up, and then move to the 3rd fret of the G to resolve that sus to just a straight dominant 7th chord. So that's an F sharp 7. Okay. You with me? I like it. So descending chord progressions, ascending chord progressions. we've talked a little bit about, sort of flipping we've had examples in the past where we sort of are creative with the bass notes so that you can, make a descending chord progression sound like it's ascending, right? By using triads, moving up the neck a little bit. This case, I'm just giving you a couple of common examples of some descending and ascending ones tonight. So California dreaming, right? Especially in winter. Let's see, Laura, you got a question about an amp question. Is it better to turn up the volume or master gain? It confuses me. Okay, so typically on an amp, you're going to have a master volume and you're going to have or an overall volume. You can think of that as the overall volume of the amp, and you're also going to have a gain. Okay, the gain is going to give you overdrive or saturation or more distortion. Okay, and the master volume is going to crank up the overall volume of the amp. Okay. But what a lot of people like to do is, especially with tube amps, and I'm not sure this is the case, it can't go to 11 all the time. There you go. So you got to keep your master lower. But if you want the sound of an overdriven amp, you've got to sort of goose the gain a little bit to give you a little bit of overdrive, a little bit of distortion. Typically, yeah, Nikki the dog, typically gain is the preamp gain. It's sort of whether or not your amp is clean or distorted. Okay. Yeah. So Laura's got a Fender Blues Junior, right? So you're gonna have a gain control to bring it into a little more of a crunchy overdrive sound, or back it off and make it a little bit cleaner. And then your overall volume or your master volume is just going to control the overall level of the amp, how many watts it's, busting out of the speaker, right? But the thing with a tube amp like that is that the master volume adds distortion too. So a lot of guys like the sound of a lot of the master volume distortion, like overdrive as well, right? Which is why a lot of guitar players insist on having their tube amps cranked right up, right? Because there was a certain overdrive sound that happened that you don't get with a gain control, a preamp gain control. Okay, you get like a certain sound with that, but with the master, you get a different kind of overdrive sound, which a lot of guitar players love, right? So that's the trade-off, right? Like if you can't crank up your amp to insane levels, right? If you're in a house or an apartment or whatever, like you just have to live with, figuring out how to make your overdrive sounds as good as they can while keeping the master volume down. So hopefully that helps. I hope that was not too confusing. Okay. There you go. Nicky the dog. He's got something. You can buy these things, the aux boxes and attenuators and power soaks and those kind of things, where you can wind an amp out fully, but you add this little device in between the amp and the speaker, and that'll bring the overall level down. And it does it, by using what is it, like a giant resistor or something like that, kind of crank it down. I don't know exactly what they are, but some sort of a power soak attenuator. And to be honest, a lot of the modern amps have that capability in them nowadays. So you'll see a lot of amps have like let's say it's a 50 watt amp, but sometimes it might have a switch to take it down to 15 watts and then another switch to bring it down to 0.5 watts. That's a built-in attenuator. And so what that lets you do is crank up the master volume without it getting crazy loud, but you're still getting the benefits of that, specific overdrive sound. There you go. Steve, is that the same thing as the fat button? Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the fat is just some sort of it's an EQ circuit that I think kicks in and it just accentuates some lower frequencies. I don't think it's quite the same thing. All right. Loving it. Keep the questions coming. I love it. Yeah, thick sounding. There you go. All right. All right. So exercise 3, Beatles song. You might recognize it. I thought this was cool because this is an idea of, not playing chords, but playing over a simple chord progression with sort of a single note riff using major pentatonic notes. So you might know this one, Drive My Car, but let me play it first couple bars, and then I'll sort of finish it off the rest of it. But I think I messed it up already. Okay, getting ahead of myself. But basically, the first two bars here, playing off of the root of the D chord, okay? You see I'm sliding up to the 9th fret, up to the 7th fret of the D, and then I have to play this pretty quickly because this song is actually kind of at a high tempo. If I do this slow, 1, 2, it's a little more doable, okay? Okay, so when I play the 9th fret, 7th fret coming back, those are 16th. So they're kind of quick. And then I quickly have to get back to the 5th fret of the A string. So, okay. Work on this slow. Make sure you can get it nice and clean. Okay. Next chord is a G chord, so we're going to play the same riff, but it's sort of transplanted down on the lower set of strings, 2 frets down. I'm just going to go back and forth, right? You're just playing D chord to a G chord. Okay. Play that 3 times. Okay, like it's kind of the verse of the tune right there, and then it sort of gets into the chorus part. Setting up the chorus, it moves to the 5 chord, which is A, right? So far we're playing D, 1 chord. G is the 4 chord. Then it goes to the 5 chord, okay? You always know something's going to happen when you go to the 5 chord. That's setting up a change to something, right? So, and the riff is a little bit different. Okay, so this time I'm sliding up 7 to 9 on the low string, 7 on the A string, but now I'm going 9, 7 on the A down to 9 on the E. Okay, so a little bit of a variation of that. Okay, end up on a B minor. So this is actually the top of the chorus right here. 2, 3, 4. Again, another chord where it's just a single strum off the top of the bar, letting it ring out for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then there's a little keyboard riff in there that's fun to play on guitar, right? So I'm going to get, what I recommend you do is grab the full G bar chord shape here. Even though I'm strumming, I'm hitting just the root note is what's tabbed out. You can actually strum the whole chord if you wanted to, right? 2, 3, 4. Now what we got here are quarter note triplets. And so what happens is we're sticking in 3 strums in the span of 2 quarter notes. So it has the triplet sound, but it's a little bit slower than the 8th note triplets that we usually sort of play around with here. I don't think we've ever done one with quarter note triplets. So what you're going to think of is 1, 2, 3, 4, triplet, triplet. 1, 2, 3, 4, triplet, triplet. And in that rhythm, we're going to go. Okay, so quick chord changes. So start off with the G chord in, I would recommend just grabbing the bar chord. And then you want to strum the D, G, and B strings. Quickly move to bar to the 5th fret of the D, G, B. And then you're going to add 7 and 6 onto the G and B, with 5 still being held down on the D, and then come back. So, okay. And you can just repeat that. I don't have it notated like that, but you can play a B minor down here because you're already down here. Right? 2, 3, 4. Okay. Fun stuff. But I wanted to show off something where it's a simple chord progression, but the kind of things that you can kind of, these are sort of like very typical ways to play a riff using major pentatonic against the chord. Okay. You've got these notes available to you, and so we're only using sort of the top 3 notes above the root, but you've got, that's the major pentatonic scale off the chord shape, like what would be the chord shape here. Remember, the sound of the major pentatonic scale is My Girl, right? That's if you go through the major pentatonic, starting on the root, all the way through it. Okay, so a couple little variations there, something you can come up with. Mess around with this stuff, because endless variations, but you hear this in countless songs, right? Makes sense? Cool. So rhythm styles, we're going to go to a little bit of an R&B thing. This is one I'm working on for Guitar Tricks. Going to film this after Thanksgiving, but another Sam Cooke R&B classic. Great guitar playing and all that Sam Cooke stuff if you're into the R&B thing. And what I love about R&B guitar is that you learn these things that you can apply to any other genre, and it sounds really cool, okay? The thing with this exercise 4 is that we're in 6/8 time, okay? So our pulse is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? And the first bar, we're going to be triad time, C major triad, okay? And look at, we've just got straight strums right on the beat, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, I played it wrong there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So the only thing happening there is that we're strumming on that C triad, 9th fret of the G, 8th fret of the top 2 strings. Locking in with the groove, nice and relaxed, but on that 3rd strum, I'm adding the 10th fret of the high string onto the chord. Okay. Nice, simple little embellishment that you can do that keeps you in, playing off the major chord, right? Thanks, Terry. Coming down to A minor triad, 1 finger, 5th fret, top 3 strings, right? Now check it out. What a cool little fill. Okay, once again, in triplets, but coming in 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, top string, B string, G string, playing A minor pentatonic off of that A minor triad, right? So that bar, 1, 2. Okay. Next is an F chord. F triad, 2nd fret of the G, 1st fret of the top 2 strings. Same shape as the C, right? Now down here, okay? So once again, a 1-note little embellishment onto the triad. This time, 3rd fret of the B string. 2 strums. Then you're going to get a triplet thing in there where it goes 3rd fret on the B, 1st fret on the B, 3rd fret on the B. And you're still strumming the whole chord, right? And then when it gets back to the 8th notes there, the last 2, 3rd fret of the B, and then back to the 1st fret. Just going to move it up 2 frets to the G chord and play the exact same thing. So play the whole thing together. It sounds like this. Okay. Pretty straight ahead, but what I love to illustrate on this is that there's nothing really super crazy about these embellishments, right? Like oftentimes just a note, just to add a little interest, give it a little texture, right? So, sort of know your triad shapes and know where the notes that sound good around them, where you can kind of just do like a single strum off the chord, right? So typically where those lie on this major chord shape is on the G string, it's 1 fret up. That gives you the sus sound, right? Or 2 frets up on the B, or 2 frets up on the high string. Okay. Using all of those here. And then when you're on the minor chord here, using the minor pentatonic box. Yeah, there's another fill in this song that plays off the chord even simpler than that goes like this. Right? Just highlighting a note and then grabbing the 7th fret of the G and then back to the 5th fret. So a lot of times, right? A lot of times it's just a note and maybe a little bit of a flourish of a strum. Okay. Yeah. And we're all staying in position. We're all within reach. So I think it's cool. And I think this is stuff that you can use in any genre, right? Just to, we're playing this in a laid back 6/8, but you could add some distortion and you could even add that to a hard rock song, right? Just play off a triad and kind of add some embellishments onto it. But you'd be a lot more aggressive using like a distorted sound, right? Sound cool? All right. So yeah, let's see. Terry says the fingerings can be a challenge. I think they're a challenge just making it clean because, on some of these shapes, in order to kind of add those notes, you have to make sure that your fingers are curled up enough so that you're not kind of fretting out notes, right? So even though you're barring down with your index finger, you want to make sure that the notes here aren't fretting out the, sort of the next string down a little bit. Cool. You with me? All right. Thought I'd throw in some country and be a little simpler this week. But I think this is a great exercise. General exercise, once again, even for you players that are a little more experienced, a little more intermediate. I want to challenge you to go through this one because we've got some palm muting on the low notes. Okay, we want to make sure that's nice and clean. We're going to use some hybrid picking. Okay, so what I'm going to do is alternate bass notes. In the case of the first exercise, open A to the open E, root 5th. I'm going to hold on to an A shape right here, but I want to pluck 2nd fret of the G and B. Now notice that when I pluck that, I'm sort of letting off of the chord quite quickly. I'm not holding it sustained. I'm cutting it off. You see what I'm doing here? Okay. I've also got my hand. It's actually less of the karate chop because I have to come in a little flatter to be able to pluck the strings. Okay. So I'm just sort of making sure that I can get this part of the flesh on those low strings. Okay. So. Now challenge yourself. I know that, some of you intermediate players, this might look a little bit easy, right? But throwing a metronome or a drum groove, even a train beat, if you got one of those, some drum loops, or if you go to YouTube and get, sort of a backing train beat, country-ish kind of thing, and see if you can keep in the groove. Okay. And, because country borrows a lot from blues, we're going to use the 4 and the 5 chord on this same idea. So if I go up to D, 2nd fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, and the open D string, alternating between the open D and the open A, same idea. Okay. Now, a little bit tougher to get that D string palm muted. Okay, so you got to work on kind of positioning the hand so that you can still pluck out the higher part of the chord nice and clean and fully, right? You see how I had to adjust my hand there a little bit to bring it down just a bit. Okay. That's your 4 chord on the D, right? And then for the E chord, now just grab a full E shape, but we're only going to be plucking some of it, right? So doing the low string, open, 2nd fret of the A string, that's your root 5. It's kind of reversed. Now check it out. In this case, I've got the upper part of the E chord. So I've got the 1st fret of the G, open B string, right? Now, I still want the upper part of the chord to be quick, but one of them's an open string. So in order for me to cut it out, I'm actually sort of placing my fingers back on the string to cut off the chord to help, because you know, I can lift off what I'm fretting and cut it off, but if I've got an open string, you have to use your picking hand to mute it, right? So you see that as soon as I pick it off, I'm just placing my fingers on there ready for the next pluck. So that way it cuts it off. Okay. So you put it all together into 12-bar blues, 8-bar blues, whatever you want to do, and use that rhythm. And it sounds really great. You know, it's a really straightforward part, but it works so well if you've got a rhythm section that's got, you know, swinging on that sort of train beat, you know, that kind of thing. And you're just holding it down. All right. Fun stuff, right? All right. So a little bit more advanced here. Exercise 6, the funk example, the Nile Rodgers example for this week. So we have sort of 2 sort of rhythm patterns in this particular one. The second of which gets repeated 3 times with a different set of chords. So it's best to sort of take this one in chunks, okay? So let's see if I can play through this first, and we'll dig in a little bit. All right, so here we go. Oh yeah, and then it goes. All right, so obviously we got to go slow with this. We're going to take it in chunks. Let's break it down a little bit. So D minor 7, root 5, barring down at the 5th fret, starting at the A string all the way up, adding the 7th fret of the D string, 6th fret of the B string. Okay. Now let's just look at the first couple beats of the first bar. This is exercise 6. Okay. The whole key to sort of funk rhythm guitar is that we're keeping this going steady. Okay, so a good way to just sort of get into it a little bit is just mute the strings and see if you can just 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and on every quarter note, I'm kind of digging in a little bit more to give it a little bit of a texture and just like kind of get a natural feel going. Okay, down, ups for every quarter note. Okay, go slow with it at first. Also, really important, keep this nice and loose and relaxed. Okay, if you're tightening up, really hard to make it sound nice and grooving and in time. Okay, if you get that natural sort of relaxed, okay, that's what we're going for. Now, the first two beats here, I'm going to press down on the chord for the very first strum and then mute all the strings for the next up, down, up. Okay, so I have to press down and then lift off, okay, so that I'm getting the scratchy sound, those muted strums, right? Yep, and if you got the wah pedal, even better, right, Mark? Exactly. All right, so those are the first two beats. Go as slow as you need to go. Okay. Now, grabbing an A minor 7, 5th fret of the low string, I have to curl my finger to mute the A string and then barring down on the 5th fret of the D, G, and B. Now check out the rhythm changes here, okay? So I'm going to go. So now it's a little trickier because I'm hitting the chord on the downstroke, then I've got an up, down, so that means that the next up, which I've transcribed incorrectly on this, oh my gosh, it's a mess. I'm going to have to do version 2 of this. I apologize, everybody. Those down, up markings are not correct. It's a mess, all right? I apologize, and I will fix it. There'll be a version 2 to download shortly after the session tonight. Okay, I apologize. You should be keeping the rhythm of the first two quarter notes. Like, it just makes sense. Down, up, right? We're keeping a steady 16th note groove, okay? So that means that when we go to the A minor 7, it's down, up, up. So we're going to catch the second strum of that A minor 7 chord on the upstroke. Sorry. So now on that downstroke, we're going to move it down 2 frets, let it ring out over the next bar, and then that part is correct. The next, like when it comes back in, down, up, the first two are muted, then we're down on the chord for 2 strums, then we're muted again, okay? So let's take that chunk. Okay, that's what we got up until the middle of the second bar. A little bit slower. Now we're going to change to 2 other chords to play that same rhythm on. Okay, first one is going to be an F chord. What was I going to say? To be precise, F/A. Okay, this is an inverted F chord here. It's so it's a you're going to bar down at the 5th fret. You've got the 7th fret of the D, 6th fret of the B. Okay. From there, you're going to go to the major B flat major, right? Okay, but that's 8th fret of the D, 7th fret of the G, barring down at the 6th fret of the top 2 strings. So. Okay, so it's the exact same rhythm that we did here. Sorry. Okay, we're going to apply it to these 2 chords. Okay, John's asking what the fingering is in the A minor 7. Okay, middle finger, A note, low string, ring finger, 5th fret of the D, G, and B. And you got to curl that middle finger to mute the A string. Okay? Okay? Hopefully that does it. So once we get up to here, we play it twice. And then we end off with an A minor this time. Okay? And you might not have seen this one. 7th fret of the D, barring down on the 5th fret of the top 3 strings, and adding the pinky, 8th fret of the top string. And I'm cutting off that chord really quickly on each of those. Okay, they're 8th notes, 3 and 4 and. Okay? So once again, putting it together a little bit slower. All right? All right, a lot to dig in there. So as I recommend, if it seems a little overwhelming, don't get overwhelmed by it. Take it a chunk at a time. Just start with that D minor 7, okay? Work on that. It's 2 beats. You can repeat that, loop it, okay? Make sure you're getting a feel for that. Once you've got that, move to the next couple beats, right? Just like the A minor 7 to the G minor 7. Don't even worry about the second part of the rhythm at first. Just satisfy yourself that you can get little chunks down at a time. All right. Makes sense? We're running out of time. I got 2 left. Exercise 7. This is a blues rhythm guitar approach. That's a great complement to our usual sort of take a blues in A, right? Okay. It's usually what we would do. Right. But this one's a little sparser, and it's more of a, if you kind of get in your mind the sound of a horn section playing on a blues track, might sound something like this. 1, 2, 3. 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Turn around. Okay, so that's the idea with that one, just to expose to you a little bit. You don't always have to, although you can't go wrong playing a blues with that kind of rhythm guitar approach, right? Taking some upper chords and adding in like a semitone, like 1 fret down, back up. Super effective, right? Nice little stabs, little accents. This A chord, right? Normally in a blues would be an A7. This is an extended chord, an A13. You're adding the 6 onto the chord, okay? So, which is, love that shape, okay? You want to make sure you keep that shuffle going, right? That swing, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 instead of straight time, 1 and 2 and 3. You want that swing, that bounce. Okay, the D chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Those are D and E9 chords, right? Again, sort of similar, John, to the A minor 7 sort of thing, but with an extra note in the middle. So you've got middle finger on the root, A string, index finger, a fret down on the D string, and then back up, in this case, on the 5th fret of the top 3 strings. Okay? All right. End off with a jazz, right? So just outlining a few extended chords here with a cool little rhythm. And again, we've got a bit of swing to this. So let's see if I can play through this, and I'll just talk about it a little bit. And also, even though we're playing sort of just, 3 notes at a time, it's always good to sort of grab the whole chord shape. I know I've talked about that before. So if for example, the C major 7, even though we're not plucking the B string at all, I like to have it there just in case, kind of mess up as I often do and kind of, Okay, that's the first two bars on C major 7. So no pick, using the thumb on the low string, just plucking D and G strings here. The root's going to move to the A string sometimes. Okay, D7, we move it up 2 frets. Now I've got 10 on the low E, 10 on the D, but 11 on the G. Same rhythm. Now D minor 7 to G7. Okay. G7, you're going to move down to the 10th fret of the A string here. Now back to C major 7. And then a quick little change in that last bar, right? Okay. Yes. I like to, on all my guitar sounds, I throw a little bit of slapback echo in there just to fill it out a little bit and just have it a little bit low there. I just like the sound of it. Sort of just adds a little fullness to everything, I find. And it sort of mostly stays out of the way, right? You hear it in this cases because we're doing a lot of kind of muting, right? So let me see if I can play this whole thing to end it off, right? End off the Friday night, right? Let's see. Bad. Let's do it again. There we go. There you go. Good stuff, right? All right, another one in the books. Super appreciate it as always. Great stuff in the comments tonight. Thanks so much, Rusty, for holding down the comments section, and everybody for joining each and every week. I appreciate it so much. We'll be back on the acoustic next week, acoustic workout, I think. Let's see. Thanks so much, Steve, Robin, Laura, thank you. HH, thanks, Zane, Theodore, Danny. Thanks, Mark B. Yes, definitely check it out again. All right. Jody 1, thank you. Oh, Terry, at least one exercise has to match the shirt. Well, I didn't have a Pink Floyd tonight. I'll try and get one in next week. All right. All right. See you then, Laura. Russ, take care. John, my man, thank you. Take care. James, Quinn, thank you. HH, I appreciate it. Kessa, thank you. Rad Flying V, thanks. Nikki the dog, as always, thank you. Terry, thanks so much again. Yeah, Thanksgiving weekend next week for here in the U.S. Have a great week, everybody. King 50, thank you. Russ, thank you. JD, Steve, Ollie, MA and Alonzo. Take care, everybody. Dave, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great next week. And we'll be back Friday night on the acoustic. All right. We'll see you then. Thanks so much, Steve. Take care, everybody. Cheers. See ya.